Sure thing. So, come up here. Hey everyone, I've got Michelle here with me today from On Angels Wings. We are going to be talking about the services that she provides to the community, as well as some of the things that she's got going on, and how you can connect with her. So welcome. Stay tuned here. We're going to talk about a few things. And then also, if you have any questions, I'll make sure to try to keep up with those. Definitely let me know. And we're trying to go live here on Facebook as well. So give me just 1 second, making sure that it doesn't glitch on us. There we go. All right. We are officially live. All right. So thank you for being here, Michelle. I'm so honored to have this chance to showcase you and let you talk about everything that you're doing, but also how you can connect with people and how they can reach out to you. So thank you so much. I think first, let's talk about you. Share something about you. What's going on with you?
What's going on with me? A lot, actually. Where do you want me to begin? You want life stuff? Like,
yeah,
okay,
whatever you want to share.
So I've lived in Springfield since I was 11 years old. So 6th grade on. The only time I left was to go to college at Mizzou. I have an English degree from Mizzou. That's where I met my husband, and we got married in 2003. What year was that? Yeah, 19 years now. And we have 2 boys. They are 14 and 11. One of my heart projects is we're all very neurodiverse in our house. My youngest has high functioning autism, and we've got ADHD in the house and anxiety disorders and things like that.
Wow.
So my oldest was just diagnosed with dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, we homeschool.
Yeah.
So we use a really cool program that does all of the curriculum for me because I'm a very, very busy person.
Yes, she is very busy.
And yeah, it's great. Like I'm married to my best friend.
Yeah.
You know, I love that we get the opportunity to say that. I know at this 20-year mark, a lot of people are like,
yeah,
but we're very happy, and our boys are thriving. And so we just I get the opportunity to pursue the things that I'm excited about, as well as, advocate for them. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. So you're a mom and you're a wife, and you have these other projects, these very deep connected projects that are going on. So tell me about those.
So like I said, I have an English degree. So I've always been doing some kind of writing. So my career has been in the legal field, and then I was doing freelance writing. And recently, the last 4 years, I was managing editor for a publishing company. But it was like, I love doing those things, but it wasn't like my heart and passion. In 2013, I started On Angels Wings. It's a nonprofit organization here in Springfield that provides free professional photographs and ongoing grief recovery support for families that have a medically fragile child or who lose a child at birth. And so we just had our 9th birthday this July. It was 9 years, and we're just seeing like exponential growth, to the point that in June, I resigned my job and I'm now working the organization full time. So that's kind of my passion project. I've also been a photographer in the community for 15 years. And then that writing prowess came out this June. I wrote a book. So that, one of those things that I had been ambitious about doing like my whole life was writing something. And so that's also very surreal. Like,
now that it's done.
Yeah, now that it's done. Getting out into the world, that's a whole other project. But so yeah, I was able to, I started salary support raising about 18 months ago so that I could leave my job. And I chose to do it separate from the organization because as the executive director of the organization, I kind of oversee our finances. And it felt a little like unethical to go
Yeah.
through the organization for my salary when the organization doesn't really have the funds. And I would be managing it. I was just like, I don't like it.
Yeah.
So I went through another nonprofit that helps individuals in my position
Oh, wow.
to raise salary support. And so that's what I'm doing. And yeah, it's just been a journey.
Yeah. Lots and lots of things going on.
Yeah.
Simultaneously. So working on one project also includes working on 5 other things.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah. And there's been a lot of self-discovery in the last couple of years. Asking for salary support was like, it was the kind of difficult thing that I did not expect it to be. Because I try not to like make things about me, especially when it comes to this organization. My heart is for other people. And so it was really hard for me to come to people and say, will you help pay my salary because this organization doesn't run without me? Like that was just so hard.
Yeah.
But that imposter syndrome was like hardcore for a long time.
Yeah.
And so that process of self-discovery that I wasn't expecting during that, even some of the like the networking gals that we've connected with through them were with me at the beginning of that journey and just like crying to them, literally crying like I can't do this. This is too hard. So yeah, there's so many things I can talk about. Like I don't we were trying to figure out what to talk about. I was like,
But you wear so many hats every single day that even as you're navigating each project, you still bring so much value to each role. And that
I certainly try.
Yeah, but it inspires me because, you know, we look at our community and all of the things that we want in our tribe and our, you know, and our close friends and the people that we connect with. We want them to be dynamic. We want them to have that ability to adapt and transition, but also to literally connect on a deeper level. And you have that, and you have that ability to really plug yourself in, and just because you have that intrinsic value already, and then you bring forth this conversation about, you know, I may be a mom and I may be a wife, but I'm also all of these other things. And it's important to acknowledge that. I think
Absolutely.
As you know, as an entrepreneur myself, acknowledging that there's all of these priorities and all of these things that we find very important, but also balancing it and you know, finding a way to manage all of it appropriately. You know, you can't just set one thing down solely just to focus on all the other things. You have to handle all of it.
And that was I think that's where this idea to like salary support raise before COVID.
Yes.
Was there ever a time? But like late 2019, I, like, full disclosure, like had a mental breakdown because I was balancing so many different things. And my husband and I sat down and we were like, what needs to happen? What needs to change in order for this to not be so overwhelming? Because I had a full-time job. We weren't yet homeschooling the kids even at that point. And I was trying to run this organization, a full-time job. I was trying to run my photography business, and I was on a worship team at church. Like it was just so many things. And that's when the idea to salary support raise came. And it just felt like it was so far away. And this whole time it's felt so far away. And then when it came, it was just like, it was like writing the last line of my book. Like it was just like, I worked on the book for 5 years. So it was just, I'm actually done. Like this is real.
You can take a deep breath. Be like,
well, and that's where I'm at now. Like margin has not been a thing for me in a very, very long time. And we had some friends asking us last night, you know, like, how are things going? And like, where are you at? What are you feeling? And I was like, peace. Like there's margin because I'm in control of my time now. I'm not having to answer to so many other things. Like I still have obligations with the organization and my business and stuff, but it's like, and I'm still busy, but it's because I'm choosing to be busy and I'm prioritizing the things that I want to do as opposed to the things that I have to do. And that's just been like such a weight off my shoulders, like just being like, joyful. Like I feel like my joy is coming back, which it was just hiding for a while.
Well, and it gets kind of buried underneath all of these
Mm.
things that you've got to really, you have to put effort into it and energy, like infuse all that energy into
Yeah.
it so that it does become productive and become something that you can then reinfuse your joy into.
Yeah. And well,
Yeah.
and with the work that On Angels Wings does, like I have a deep connection with a lot of these families.
Mhm.
I'm an empath and I can literally feel someone's mood shift, like
Yeah.
physically feel it.
Yeah.
And I often reflect it.
Mhm.
So it's difficult sometimes for people to connect with me, but then at the same time, they like, even though I don't understand what they're going through, they feel like I hear them.
Yes.
And all of that, like that's a heavy burden in and of itself.
Yeah.
And I was just not taking time for self-care
Mhm.
when I'm carrying that and
Yeah.
my own burdens and everybody else's
Yes.
burdens. Like it's something I can't even help doing. Like I
Right.
just take people's burdens on.
Mhm.
So it's been a journey the last 2 years. Like it started before COVID. It wasn't COVID. COVID gave me more time for it. But of like self-reflection, self-care, and prioritizing and being okay with, like when I had my job,
Mhm.
being okay with saying this can wait till tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like that was a huge struggle for me.
Right.
It was like, I have so much to do and it all needs to be done right now. And there's
Yeah.
deadlines that I have
Yeah.
to meet. And it's like, my husband would be like, does the world end if you miss a deadline by a day? Like,
Mhm.
nope.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And it also allows you, again, that balancing act of really literally solidifying the priorities, what's most important today, so that tomorrow I can pick up where I left off,
Yeah.
so that I can take some of the stuff that's on my plate today, shift it maybe to tomorrow or the next day, so that you can really, because self-care, it's such a trendy topic right now. And I talk about this with my clients even, and the awareness that self-care is not just fun or,
a bubble bath.
yeah, and it doesn't have to be so lavish and so expensive, but it is going to cost your energy if you don't
when I
practice self-care.
when I had my emotional break and finally like decided, okay, I need a counselor, which I've always pushed for everybody else in my family.
Yeah.
And I've done it multiple times, but like, well, I'll be okay. I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I finally started seeing someone and she was like, I need you to make a list of things you can do for yourself that take 5 minutes, that take 10 minutes, that take 30 minutes.
Yep.
And I was just like, these big numbers are hard. Like
Yeah.
5 minutes, I can sit and drink a cup of tea and look out the window. Like,
Yes.
okay, yeah, cool.
Yes.
I can do that.
Yep.
But like 30 minutes?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh,
My clients probably identify with this because we start small. We start with 5 minutes or 10 minutes and we move to 30 minutes because 30 minutes really is enough. Kind of that basic understanding of that's when your body is the most still, the most quiet, and the most present with yourself when you get to that 30 minutes. But it can be tough.
Yeah.
If you do not make yourself a priority, if you do not at least acknowledge that, you can be excited all day long and that's great. But at the end of the day, all of that excitement, it wears on you. And so even on the best days, you still have to find that common ground with yourself.
Yeah.
Meeting yourself in the mirror.
Yeah.
And saying, okay, it's time for me to just exist.
Yeah. Well, and I think also it's not just about the bubble baths and then drinking a cup of coffee, but it's about boundaries is self-care. And I have, because I'm such an empath and I want to do all the things and I like don't want to disappoint anyone. And like boundaries is hard for me. And I'm literally going to talk to y'all right now because this is a big one for me. When I started setting boundaries, there were people in my life that had taken advantage of my openness for whatever for so long that when the boundaries started getting set, they got angry but couldn't figure out why they were angry.
Right.
And they literally just like cut me out of their life because it would be something like two individuals would be upset with each other and one of them would try and drag me in the middle of it. And I would literally say, like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to be your vent place. Like, this is between you and that person. So I'm just going to need to set this boundary. And they would push and push. And I'm like, I'm not going to do this.
Mhm.
And then they completely cut me off because they were so used to over, 15, 20 years,
Yeah.
me just being that person and being like, I'm so sorry. This sucks for you. I
Yeah.
wish I could help.
Yeah.
And it was like, I can't keep, again, taking on
Mhm.
everybody's burdens
Yep.
to that degree. So it really, made me realize like how many people were really taking advantage of my willingness to
Yeah.
be present.
Mhm.
So yeah, setting boundaries was hard.
Yes, yes. And, once you set those boundaries of what you want for yourself, you also still have to decide what you want for your relationship.
Yeah.
And what you are willing to sacrifice in order to maintain that relationship. And if it is toxic or if it's unhealthy, regardless of who it is
Yeah.
and how
Yeah,
they
it was
relate to
family.
you. Yes, because family, it's sometimes I'm not going to generalize. I'm just going to say sometimes family members can feel like it is our obligation to
Mhm.
take on those things,
Mhm.
to take on that role of just being whatever it is that they need for us.
Yeah.
And that line really gets blurred and sometimes it just disappears.
Right. And
because-
those boundaries are often seen as selfishness on your
Yes.
part.
Yes.
And it's like being okay with saying, yeah, kind of,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going to be selfish right now
Yeah.
because I'm struggling
Yeah.
and, my mental health, it needs to be a priority for my
Right.
own family unit.
Right.
So that I can serve them and the people that like I'm passionate about serving
Yeah.
adequately.
Yeah.
Like the last thing I want to do is not be fully present for my own family or
Yes.
for these families that I walk with through
Right.
their grief. Like those are my priorities.
Yeah.
So
And you will find anyone who is walking that line, learning how to set boundaries, appropriate boundaries for themselves. It is a natural progression to understanding what's important
mhm.
in order to set those boundaries, but then also how much better you feel.
Yeah.
Because you're removing the things that are taking so much energy. Whether it's a job, maybe a boss that's, abusing that boundary,
absolutely.
or a coworker, family members, friends. But once you set that firm line and
Mhm.
say, I'm taking myself back, I'm reclaiming my time, and it's time for me to use my own energy for what it is that's important.
Absolutely.
And that really allows you to open up to all of the possibilities, and especially when you've got 100 projects going on at one time, and I didn't know you prior to any of, these other things. So I don't know what it was like, but I can see you now and I can see that you have just this powerful energy that is inspiring.
You're going to
it's
make me Oprah
encouraging.
cry.
But it's important as women that we support one another, but we see
Yeah.
each other.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's hard to do that when we're facing our own struggle.
Yeah.
But also hearing it and receiving that.
Yeah.
And, that's what this project is about.
Yeah.
This series is about, opening up about the struggles that we face, but then also moving through them.
Yeah.
And so going from that conversation, hopefully I don't make you shed too many tears, but going from that conversation into working with and being the face of On Angels Wings, and then creating your book, writing that.
Yeah.
And I would love for you to share about that in a way that, maybe talk about what you went through or some of the conversations that you had to have along the way.
So maybe sharing the story about how On Angels Wings came to be. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll start there. So when I was pregnant with my firstborn, he was born in 2008. And it was just very normal pregnancy, very like regular morning sickness. Pregnancy was great. He was born perfectly healthy. And I was very naive at the time. I was 27 and I thought my grandmother had stillbirths, but I thought, oh, this doesn't happen anymore. Once you get past 12 weeks, you're golden. I've since learned, 1 in 160 births are stillbirths. I mean, that's a huge number.
Yeah, I just got goosebumps.
Yeah, I mean, but we don't talk about it.
Right.
Which is part of what On Angels Wings is trying
Yes.
to change. We're trying to normalize the conversation. But
Yeah.
that said, my mom called me when he was about a month old, and I remember it very distinctly. I was literally holding him in my arms, and she said, "You need to turn on Today's Show." And there's a national organization that does just stillbirth photography. And they were on the Today Show, and I was just sobbing because here I am with my perfectly healthy child in my arms, and they don't even get to take their child home. And that's the empath in me. I was immediately like, I need to do something.
Yeah.
So I was with that organization as the area coordinator here in Springfield for about 18 months. And there were some differences,
Mhm.
we'll say, like just learning how things were managed, and also seeing like the gaps that weren't being filled, like the support side and things like that.
Mhm.
We parted ways, and it was devastating for me because a fire had been lit in me. And one of my
Yes.
friends just looked at me and said, "Who says this is the end?
Mhm.
This may ever be the beginning." And I got the name for On Angels Wings at that moment.
Yeah.
And I sat on it for about 4 years because we had another child, and it was just the timing wasn't right. And
Mhm.
I'm a person of faith. And so I felt like the Lord was saying, yes, but not now,
Mhm.
for like 4 years.
Yes.
I'm like, when? No, what? So in 2013, I met through a friend this boy named Logan, and he was about 7 months old, and he had spinal muscular atrophy. And this is the number one genetic killer of children under 2, where as soon as they're born, their muscles begin to deteriorate. At 7 months old, he couldn't hold his head up. He couldn't really use his arms or anything like that. And his family invited me to his house to do pictures, and they were taking a palliative approach with him. There wasn't a cure or anything at the time, no treatment. And so they just made a bucket list of things that he was going to miss. And so that day, he was touching dirt and mud for the first time. So he's sitting in mom's lap at the kitchen table, and she's got 2 Tupperware containers, and she's letting him feel in it, and he's enjoying himself. And then he's getting overstimulated, and he's just like,
Yeah.
and you see him muster every ounce of energy he has. And he shoves those Tupperware containers off of her lap, and they go everywhere. And I captured this moment when he did that because it took so much for him to do it, of him just cackling.
Mhm.
And that image is just so ingrained in my mind. It's
Yeah.
up on the wall in our studio for On Angels Wings,
Mhm.
because it was that moment that I was like, oh, like I get goosebumps even now.
Yeah.
Still, about 3 months later, he started to go downhill. I went to his family's home and did like a goodbye session with his parents and his brother. And then I was at their funeral a couple days later, and I left that funeral just sobbing and begging God, let it be now. Let it be now. I'm ready.
Yeah.
And I came home and told my husband, and he's like, let's go. And so I filed the paperwork that day, and On Angels Wings started. And it was always the vision of this organization to go a step beyond. It was, I don't want to just do stillbirth. There's so many families who are struggling through this journey of wondering if their child's going to make it to tomorrow, that need moments to just enjoy each other and celebrate their child's life. And then that whole support side, like I just connect so deeply to people that I couldn't just like take pictures and say, I hope everything works out for you, and walk away.
Right.
So I wanted there to be like a strong support side, and that has morphed and grown so much even alone over the years. In 2020, my current VP and I, she's been with me the whole time, got certified as grief recovery method specialists. And we've taken several of our recipients and community members through this 8-week grief recovery program that literally changed my life, changed her life, when we went through it. And it's just been awesome to watch, like even our families who have medically fragile children that are still living, we're like, I don't know if I need this, but I'm going to give it a shot. And then they've told us after coming out of this program, I had no idea how much I was grieving.
Yes.
Because they were grieving the life they thought their child would have,
Yes.
the life they thought they would have, because they had great careers, and then they had to just drop everything to care for their child 24/7, like
Yeah.
all of these things that they didn't realize they were holding on to.
Right.
And just giving people the opportunity to process those things. We never say getting over it. We always say moving forward and completing those emotional attachments to things. I've always explained it as like a ream of yarn and you can roll it up in a ball. Anybody who knits understands what I'm saying. You can roll it up in a ball and it's really easy to use, or you can just throw it in a basket and it becomes a tangled mess. And like when we just, as a society, we just compact grief, we just compact it.
Yeah.
And it's like that tangled mess of yarn. All of those emotions attached to every grief and loss that we've had is tangled all in our lives. And if we don't like fully acknowledge every emotion associated with that, if we don't try and like verbalize, you literally need to verbalize how you're feeling, but we don't do that.
Yeah.
Then it's never like, you've got to pull that whole ream of yarn out
Yeah.
of all of the tangles.
Yeah.
So that's what we do with this grief program, is we teach people to verbalize, acknowledge, like to someone, you say it to someone.
Yeah.
And it's never to the person that you've lost, even if they're still alive.
Yeah.
But it's someone hearing you fully and completely and acknowledging it is so empowering.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all of that, like celebrating life and encouraging hope. That is our motto for the organization. And it's just celebrating every life, no matter how short, and encouraging hope for tomorrow, whether that means that you've lost your child, but like that hope of, I can still find joy in my life.
Yeah.
Never that you'll get over it, but that,
Yeah.
that joy can still be present. And we want to help you get there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could talk about it for a long time. It's my
Yes.
baby, my passion project.
But it is such a pointed service. That kindness and that generosity of sharing your energy and your capacity to see someone else, to hear them, to offer you, and your knowledge to them as they are processing that grief. And that is so needed. It's so necessary. We don't talk about grief as a society. It's hard. It is, it is different for everyone. So it's really hard to just give a step by step, without sometimes being generalized, but also acknowledging that we all experience it.
Yeah.
All of us.
Yeah.
And even especially parents that are struggling through any kind of adverse situation with their child.
Yeah.
Because even as a parent myself, I have experienced grief of my own as a mother, and I didn't have the resources. I didn't have the understanding, because I honestly thought that I'm not going to be one of them.
Yeah.
Because I was doing everything right.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what drew me to you, in that you are willingly and wanting to offer this to people, because you saw it as a need, and you saw it as a way to help people heal.
Yeah.
And not just ignore it, not just pretend like it doesn't exist.
Yeah. And I think when we started the organization like 9 years ago, like I said, we worked really hard to change the narrative a little bit and open up the conversation. It was hard. It was, people saw our services as like the cloud of death, essentially. Like if I invite them in to do pictures, then I'm accepting that things are done.
Right.
But now like we're seeing a progression of people being willing to talk about it, being open about it. And I think what I feel like it stems from, history lesson. When we as a nation like moved westward, those times were, anybody who's watched 1883, that show?
Yes. Yeah.
Those times were so tumultuous.
Yes.
People were dying left and right. And if you didn't just push past it, you would die too.
Yes.
And I think it was unintentional, but I think generationally, we passed on this push past it to survive, past. And we are now in a place as a society where that's not necessary.
Yeah.
We don't need to push past grief to survive.
Yeah.
We need to acknowledge grief to survive. And I think that's where we're seeing this mental health crisis right now, and kind of like this epidemic of mental health needs, is because our generation and the generations coming after us are like, I am struggling and I am tired of nobody acknowledging it.
Right.
I mean, that's what I grew up in, is like, just move on, just be okay. And I don't think it was ever an intentional, like,
it wasn't a purposeful harm.
no, not at all. But I think it's time that we change it. And that's actually, I'm going to transition. That's actually where my book came from.
Yeah.
So in working with these families, and watching what happens. Like, one, we stick with them throughout the entirety of their journey if they'll have us, because so many of them, especially when it's loss of an infant, after like 6 months, people no longer acknowledge their child or say anything because they just don't know how.
Right.
But also what I've seen during my 15 years doing bereavement photography is that people say and do these things that are intended for help. They say these platitudes that they think are, helpful, but they actually are super harmful. And what we have loads of resources about how to grieve, but there's really nothing out there about how to help someone grieve when you don't understand what they're going through.
Right.
And that's entirely what my book is about. It's called Unshattered Grief. And the concept is that, like you've got, I don't know how well you can see it. So here, the cover here. It's the concept is that when we have a tremendous loss, we're like a vase that has been shattered into 1,000 pieces and put back together. But then we spend the rest of our days like teetering on a shelf. And those that say these platitudes try and fix it, try and say things like, God has a plan, or at least you can have more kids, or these kind of things are the ones that like push it off the shelf to shatter again. And so we need to be, as a society, the people that are willing to like hold our hands out and catch that broken person and hold them, like treat them with like they're fragile. So we have to treat them that way. So, I mean, I address all of the things that I've heard from so many people, and not just people who have lost a child, but like lost spouses, lost parents. I have so many stories within these pages of what people have said and done and how it's impacted them for the negative, and ways that we can better help people when they're going through this. And really the ultimate thing is to just say, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do, but I'm here for you. And to fully mean it. Like when you say, I'm going to be here for you if you need me. And then they call you with the need and you're like, I'm sorry, I'm too busy. Like that is also something that like negatively impacts them. So we just have to really, if you want to be available, you have to really, truly mean it. Right. And just be honest instead of trying to find the right words. One of the things I address is that like we're a fixer epidemic. We want to fix everybody that's broken and that's hurting. And it's just not humanly possible. Like you just can't. That's something that they have to come to on their own through their own processes. And it's about support, not fixing. So again, I can talk about that for a long time.
But it's also, your book has very pointed, kind of acknowledgements of things that people have said, how it impacted the person that was hearing it, that was grieving. And really just sitting with the awareness that, our words mean something, our action means something. And if we're gonna put something out there, that it needs to be full of good intentions, but also we need to understand that we can't fix everything, but we can sit with them.
Absolutely.
And we can hear them and see them. And maybe even if we don't understand what they're experiencing, maybe we've never experienced that type of loss, we can understand that loss in and of itself is so powerful in a person's life.
And acknowledging, like letting them, there's no timeline on grief, there's no expectations. One of the stories in here, one of our recipients said she could count the days. It was day 87 after her daughter died, and she was still in bed, still grieving. And, a friend said, can you watch my kids today? And she said, I can't do it. And her friend was like, when are you going to get over this? Like, it's been 80 something days, get out of bed, but it's just, people who haven't been through it can't possibly fathom what it feels like, or they don't want to acknowledge it. Like it's terrifying for them to acknowledge. And so it's just letting people feel what they need to feel and processing it the way that they need to process it. I am not a fan of of the World Health Organization saying that after 6 months of grieving, it's now a disorder. Like I'm not a fan of that.
No.
Because again, it's encouraging that timeline of what grief is supposed to look like. And anybody who's lost anyone, I mean, my vice president lost her daughter over 25 years ago, and still that wound is still fresh. And breaks open.
Yeah.
You know, it's been a long time, but she's
Yeah.
still going to feel that
Yeah.
and she's still going to suffer that. And to tell her, oh, well, now we're going to diagnose you with some kind of disorder because
Yeah.
you've been grieving way too long. Like that just blows my mind
Yeah.
that we've come to that place as a
Yeah.
society.
Yeah. And it's heartbreaking too, that can then further the stigma and the limitations that are already set forward for people that are experiencing the loss and the grief and the true it is just, it's breaking that wide open is what you used a minute ago. And that's so true, because if we have a set time frame already and someone is moving past that, or maybe even they're encroaching that time, and then something else freshly opens that wound, it just propels it forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's when we work through our grief program, one of the things that I say is like, the purpose of this program is what we're doing as a society is we hold on to everything as far as loss and grief goes. So we basically have all of these unhealed wounds.
Yeah.
And so when we get hit with another loss, it's not just that loss we're dealing with, all the other wounds open up and it's, like major triage trying to fix it. But if we work through each of those losses and process the emotions that what we're feeling, and we acknowledge all of that, it's like there's still going to be scars, but they're not open wounds, so that if another loss hits us, we're only dealing with that individual loss rather than everything at once. And so that's kind of the purpose of the program that we use, is like getting you to a place where you can deal with each thing as it occurs and not have to just battle all of these things and try and wrap all these wounds in, because it's impossible.
Right. Well, and they're not all going to heal at the same time.
No,
the same rate, the same way.
No.
Everything has its place, and we have to work through it individually.
Right.
And I'm sure that people hearing that will feel encouraged, knowing that they don't have to just dismiss all of it.
Yeah.
Just to exist, because that's what, when I talk to my clients, we get very real about what it means to just exist as a human. And sometimes it's scary. Sometimes it's exciting. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's sad. Sometimes it is exhilarating.
Yeah.
But you can still embrace hope even through the grief.
Yeah.
And that is something that that people need to hear. They need to understand that, but they're not gonna be receptive to it if we just keep saying, shove it aside, push it aside.
Right. Or even things like, oh, it's going to get easier with time.
Right.
Like that implication that it will get easier with time. Subconsciously, we think, well, then that means at some point it won't hurt anymore.
Right.
And that's impossible.
Right.
Like, you can live your entire life and then you're still, on your last days, you're still going to say, oh, I wish I would have, or I wish it happened this way. And so, I mean, even those things, again, that we try and say, those platitudes that we try and say to make things better, like have this even if we can't like pinpoint it as a griever, they have this subconscious impact on us that, a year down the road, we're going, well, why isn't it better? 5 years down the road. Why isn't it better?
That's time. That's time. And then, like you said, if an organization says, well, 6 months should be like adequate time, but also 5 or 10, 15 years down the road, when that memory resurfaces, for any reason at all, whether it's a joyous moment or, or a sad moment.
Like when your child should have been graduating high school. Like that's 18 years later.
Yes, exactly.
One of the things I say in the book is like, if your sister's kid passed away as an infant and then your child is graduating from kindergarten and she can't come, it's because it hurts too much, because her child should have been too. And we just can't, well, why aren't you here for me? You should be here. And not recognizing like, if that was 5 years ago, you should still be here. Like, no. There are some major things like graduations and weddings and when your friends' kids are having kids and your kid's not, like that's just so hard. So
and I think it's there's also this acknowledgement that we need to have grace with ourselves and for others.
Oh, yeah.
And we have kind of been conditioned, especially within the last decade, I think, that we have to put on this hard face, this hard surface. And so, it goes both ways. If I'm grieving and I put on this hard shell, it's hard for someone to connect with me, and to have grace with and for me, but also in that reflection to give grace and understanding to other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of it too is that if somebody, that whole "I'm fine" response when somebody asks, "How are you doing?" after something difficult, a lot of that has to do with the fact that we don't think people want to hear us. We don't think they want to acknowledge and take the time. Like if you ask me, "Oh, how are you?" After a loss, like the obvious response is, "I'm miserable."
Right.
And they know that, but it's like, if I were to say I'm not great, then you know at that point whether they're really there for you. So it's just a scary place, because if you say, "No, I'm not doing well," that's so vulnerable. And especially if they're like, "Oh, that sucks, sorry," and they walk away, like you need somebody to connect with.
Right.
And so just that openness, I think on both sides, we just segregated ourselves from caring, and it's just not something I'm capable of.
Yeah.
It never has been.
I understand it fully. Obviously,
Right,
that's why I'm
yeah.
a coach.
Yeah,
but
you too.
also, I live in this world where I truly believe that, and I've said this a couple times already, that if we see people and we hear them, they will heal.
Yeah.
Because they will see that there's hope, that there's this possibility, there's opportunity to connect with someone that wants them to heal and wants them to be seen. And so I think that what you're doing is amazing. I'm so honored to know you. I'm so honored to watch this journey. I haven't known you for very long, only a few months, but I feel like not only am I inspired, and I've said that, but encouraged, and that's something that's like, you see sparks of inspiration here and there. I do anyway. I see inspiration everywhere and everything, but being encouraged is another thing apart, and knowing that someone and multiple people are intentionally moving the needle forward, to help the community, to provide services for people that desperately need them.
Yeah.
And that they have this opportunity to just find that joy, find that hope again. And, and it may not be fully restoration, but at least an awareness and acknowledging that it's necessary.
Absolutely.
So, was there anything else that you wanted to share or talk about?
Maybe just some things that we've got coming up that would be great to give you guys an awareness of. There's Hospice Foundation of the Ozarks is a program in town that provides grants to those that work with families at end of life. And so they're a grant provider for us, and they're celebrating their 25th anniversary this year. And they asked us, which we're super honored, to do a gallery display of On Angels Wings work. So Drury's Pool Art Gallery is going to be showcasing an exhibit from September 2nd through October 21st. They're open Monday through Friday during regular business hours, and Thursdays till 7. And so definitely, and it's open to the public, so everybody can go see that. I'm really excited about that opportunity. In October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, and October 15th is a specific day to honor that. And we're working in collaboration with Lost and Found Grief Center and doing a Wave of Light on October 15th. So that is a global event where at 7 p.m. across the globe, candles are lit in honor of these children that were lost during pregnancy and infancy. And we're going to have an event, and it's going to be at Drury on the Kellogg Field. It'll be 6:30 to 8, but they're opening the gallery as well for that day. It is a Saturday, just so you can kind of feel through the gallery and then go to the event. And that is open to the whole community, not just on Angels Wings families, but anybody that's lost families that be watching for that, because we're going to have a registration opportunity. It's free, but if you register, then your child's name will get read during the event. So we're going to have that available as well. The book Unshattered Grief, that's
Yes.
the name again,
Mhm.
is on Amazon. I am in the process of getting the audio version done
Yeah.
at the request of many individuals.
Yes. Yes.
So that is in process. Yeah, there's just, and then on Angels Wings, like, we are a donation and volunteer ran organization. So anybody that's interested in getting involved in any way can go to oawphoto.org and learn more about our organization. We always need more volunteer photographers. We opened our first location last year, so we have a studio space that's available to rent for the public.
Yeah.
So that's available on our website. And we are, anybody that prays or send good vibes, like, we are on the verge of opening chapters outside of state now.
Oh,
So we're looking at currently Minneapolis, possibly Oklahoma City, and possibly Dallas. So those are all in the beginning stages.
yay.
And we're trying to take it slow because I obviously can't go to Minnesota all the time. So we're trying to do it slow and intentionally so that we serve the community well in those areas. But it's just, when I started this, I was trying to fill the need in Springfield, and that transition to Springfield and St. Louis, because we'd have families going to specialists in St. Louis and needing a photographer there. And it just continued to grow. We served Kansas City, Joplin, Rolla, Cape Girardeau, like, we're all over Missouri.
Mhm.
And I felt like I was trying to serve the need here in our community, and God's just continually said, oh, my vision's bigger than yours.
Oh.
So
I love
okay.
that. Yes.
Yep.
Opening the doors to so much healing. And I think that's amazing.
I'm excited.
Yeah. Okay. Well, do you have any other contact information or anything that you want to share?
Yeah, you can get a hold of me through the On Angels Wings website. I get all of the emails myself.
Yeah.
Very involved. And then you can actually learn more about me as a writer on michellelcramer.com, and it's Cramer, not with a K.
Yeah.
2 L's in Michelle. And you can, access more about my book and everything there. So yeah, I'm pretty reachable. You can find me
Okay.
kind of anywhere.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And for anyone that's listening, if you get a chance, definitely check out some of the projects that Michelle has going on. Reach out to her, ask her questions, connect with her, and see if there's something that maybe you can learn from her. I personally find so much value in this beautiful woman, and I know that you will as well. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for our next episode. We're going to be talking to a couple more beautiful ladies in the coming weeks that are also providing services in the community. So until then, we'll talk to you later.